Eyberg, really nice to see you. We're both just back from Gastech, and it's great to be in the same office. What do you think? What do we do there, S&P?
Sure. No, we had a really active week at Gastech. In fact, we had 3 plenaries that we moderated. We had lots of booth presentations. We had lots of executive conversations. And most importantly, we ran our annual S&P Gas and LNG Forum. And this year, we were privileged to have it headlined by Secretary Wright, Secretary of Energy Chris Wright, and Secretary of the Interior Doug Burgum. We also had the privilege to have Director General of Energy Dita Jorgensen join, and a big group of CEOs. And it was a really fantastic conversation that we have. I think it was the most positive gas tech I've seen toward LNG, but certainly was an exciting event. What were some of the key takeaways that you had, Shankari?
Yeah, I mean, that was exactly it. I think the excitement over the amount of supply coming on stream, definitely, at least, according to our numbers, we're seeing over 50% increase in LNG supply by 2030. You can definitely feel that excitement throughout the conference, throughout the exhibition hall, as well as in the sessions. But I guess we'd stress also like the importance of energy security and how LNG really played a role for some of the geopolitical issues we've having, the loss of Russian gas in Europe, the importance of that for energy security and supply diversification. And I think that kind of translated over to other geographies too, not just Europe, in terms of that example of how important gas is to play that security role for the energy markets around the world. But when we look at kind of demand, and now with this big, huge supply coming on stream, where is the demand going to come from? That was kind of a big question, and I think the APAC players in particular were saying affordability is going to be a major issue in some of the infrastructure developments. What were you hearing there, Eric?
Sure, yeah. I think all of that positivity on the supply side and the demand side led to a lot of deals.
Yeah.
And so we heard, in fact, I've never seen so many deals done during Gastech. Usually there's a handful.
Yeah.
This year there were double digits deals, of course, in different stages. But certainly the excitement was there. And if you just think about the last 6 months, like we were saying in our S&P Gas and LNG Forum, that something around 4 projects took FID just in the U.S.
Exactly.
And that drove $150 billion of investment just in the U.S. We also saw positive FIDs and projects moving forward in Argentina. We see also projects starting to come back in Mozambique. So there was a lot on the supply side certainly moving during and in the months previous.
Yeah, so a lot of deals I think happened at Gastech as well, and we heard the suppliers loud and clear there too. But I think it was interesting. Patrick Pouyanné, CEO of Total Energy, on stage, saying also understands the cyclicality of the LNG industry. That high prices after the Russian invasion really kind of drove a lot of new projects, new investments, and we're seeing that now. So maybe a little bit of awareness that we might be going into a period where there's a lot of supply, and where is demand going to come from? And I think that was what was interesting to see some of these offtake deals there. But what do you think? We're going to, APAC is a big area, as I mentioned earlier. Affordability was that a question there. What about demand? What did you hear about, like AI and other sorts of demand?
Sure, of course. The topic of the last year has been AI. We're in the midst of the age of electricity. We heard that again during the conference in probably just about every panel. So certainly the AI boom and the age of electricity has driven a requirement for energy, and of all sources and forms is what we kept hearing. And certainly that has implications for gas. And in fact, one of the end results of that we kept hearing is gas is no longer viewed as a bridge, it's a destination.
Exactly.
And it's not only a power story, we also heard that, it's also an industry story, it's a rescom story, depending upon the country.
Yeah.
But certainly the electrification growth that we're seeing that we didn't anticipate 2-3 years ago, that has driven that need for gas. So I guess, what do you see as the challenges in order to make all this happen? We need the supply. You have to unlock the demand.
Yeah.
How did you see it? What's really critical?
Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, before discussing challenges, I just want to add maybe that also that whole role of gas and its importance was also matched very much with energy transition. And I think, as you said, for the electrification, gas very much working with renewables and also being very aware of, emissions across the industry
Sure.
was part of that discussion. But yeah,
Even with all the challenges, so we heard the
yes,
challenges too, which is that bending that cost curve has been harder than we
exactly.
thought. Technologies aren't advancing as quickly as the industry had hoped. But I think you're right. Everyone was committed to, still focused on low carbon gas, and also LNG as part of the solution.
Exactly, exactly. So I think, the challenge is affordability, right? As you unlock these demand markets, some of the countries clearly will need, some assistance. Infrastructure development, a big one. How are we going to, finance some of this infrastructure development? How are we going to develop it for new markets? I think, even in our forum, that was one of the issues that came up.
Absolutely.
And then, making that infrastructure ready, as you mentioned, for low carbon gases. It could be hydrogen or others in the future, but right now, as we develop new infrastructure, can they be hydrogen ready down the line? So it was very much, I think, gas is very much part of the picture now, but it's part
Right.
of the future too.
But making the infrastructure future ready was important
Yeah,
in general.
exactly, exactly. So yeah, I think that was a big part of the conference. What else? Was there anything on the policy side, perhaps, that you could?
Sure.
That
That
was
was a key discussion, of
yes.
course, in our forum.
Yeah.
And I'd kind of break it into the buckets of EU. EU was, of course, a first topic of discussion, in particular around methane regulations. And, I think the term was making it non-irritable in terms of implementation of the methane
Yeah,
regulations.
nice phrase, right?
Yes,
Non-irritable.
exactly. And certainly CS-triple-D
Yeah.
came up multiple times, and understand that that's being addressed in the simplification omnibus that's going through the EU Commission right now. And also on the policy regulatory front, Europe taking a really strong stance toward banning Russian gas and LNG, opening up that opportunity, as you said. On the U.S. side, I would say it was more around focusing on continuing to, push the really good work in terms of infrastructure permitting that we've already seen, and we've seen the results of that, of course, in 2025. Ensuring some of those overlaps that still exist are resolved, but at the same time, not going too fast. Dotting the I's, crossing the T's was something that came out of the roundtable that's really important, because that will then in turn reduce the amount of litigation that occurs around projects. And so making sure to do it the right way. The last was Section 301 in the U.S., which, of course, is the push toward U.S. shipping for U.S. LNG. And there were some cautionary notes around that. It could be used on the margins for bunkering, but getting to a 15% volume number long term for the U.S. LNG industry would be very tough, considering the 2-3x costs that analysts expect for U.S. shipping versus shipping from other countries that do that. And then lastly was more of a global discussion, which is how do we unlock the demand?
Yeah.
And we heard from infrastructure players saying, focus on the receiving countries and make sure to help financing for the emerging markets that will be those that drive demand long term.
Yeah, so kind of a recognition of the policy challenges, but also real, working towards solving them. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, well, I think this has been a great discussion. I think we heard a lot about huge growth in gas and LNG, a lot of deals happening. I think both, we met a lot of people, saw a lot of the industry players, and I guess, right, we're both looking forward to seeing everyone again at CERAWeek.
Absolutely. See you then.
See you then.